You're listening to the Yoga Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Cruikshank. Our podcast brings you information and resources to enhance the therapeutic effects of your practice based on a deeper understanding of anatomy, physiology, and the integration of modern science and research with traditional practices and experiences. Join me and my co-hosts, Rachel Land and Katya Barch, as we dive into all things yoga, research, and wellness. The content of this podcast is not medical advice and is not meant to replace medical care. Please consult your healthcare provider to determine what is best for your unique healthcare needs. I am so excited to have Kathryn Budig here. She has been a good friend of mine forever. I was thinking about it. I think you're one of my oldest friends that I have. We've been good friends for a very long time, and we've seen a lot of different changes in each other's lives. She and I were both on Yoga Glow. She was on there a bit before me and then pulled me over. And she's done a ton with Yoga Journal. She was the yoga editor for Women's Health. She's done so much. If you're not familiar with her, you can Google her and find a million different things. I loved that the campaign you did with Under Armour, that I Will What I Want, was such a cool one, iconic one. And lots of articles all over, and she has her 2 books you can check out. She did the Women's Health Big Book of Yoga and her best-selling book Aim True and a DVD. I mean, you've done it all, I feel like. Plus your book club, which is so cool. I love that. The Inky Phoenix, where they read books and have a book club online, which is really cool. And her podcast, Free Cookies. And of course, the one and only, the big thing I think in your life now is the House of Phoenix, which is her community online. And it's not just yoga. What I think is so cool about the House of Phoenix that you've done so brilliantly is bringing together all these different facets of playfulness, as well as live connection and community and meditations and ritual and recipes and books and like all the things you love, all the things we love, and creating just like a home for people, which is really cool. A community creator.
You described it so beautifully. Thank you for that. Because it's not the easiest thing to describe. So I'm just sitting back enjoying this.
I know, we were talking before we started too. I'm like, you're the better host here, so I'm going to do my best to guide this.
I'm just so lucky I get you. I'm like, oh yeah, bring it on.
I feel like Rachel always does our interviews because she's so good, but you're like an old friend. I had to be here. I had to be here, even though I know, yeah. But I think what's really cool as a friend is watching you over the years too. I know we both were at Glow for, I think you were there 10 years.
God, 12.
Was it 12? I was there, I think, almost 10 when I left. And for a long time, I was like, we should go do our thing. Like, we need to create what we love.
And I was like, no, Tiffany, no, don't do it.
And so I'm so excited. Like, I love watching what you've created. And I think it's like, I just watch it. And when I look at it, I'm just like overwhelmed with just like, this is so you, this is so your calling. Like, you have created this thing that is such a, like a very precious part of you. And now everyone, I think, who's on it. So how are you feeling about it?
Like having you come on and teach and people freaked out that you were on it. It's great. You know, I think about you a lot actually, because with yoga medicine, I don't know. I think with you, I was never surprised that you created your own thing. Like you were like the OG hustler and you have just such a wide birth of knowledge and backgrounds with the Chinese medicine and then the yoga. And then I don't know, I would like everyone to know right now that I have COVID brain. So if I'm kind of like floating all over, because I haven't left the house in a week.
We love you for being here.
But on all the like shiny makeup. But the point that I'm getting at is that I never thought that I would start my own site or own business. And we talked about this, like I've never wanted to own a brick and mortar or start my own studio or anything like that. And maybe that's just kind of because I love to be all over and I don't like to be tied down. And I do have so many different loves. And that's part of why I love House of Phoenix so much, is because it is a house that has many different wings and it embraces all the different kind of facets of what I find interesting in life. Um, Definitely not trendy. I wouldn't say that, I picked all the things that are going to like guarantee a fabulous, successful business. But it was just nice to finally reach a point in life where I'm like, screw it. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to build. And, you know, if you build it, they will come.
But I think that's what everyone loves about you is like people know that when they're whatever taking a class with you or on your page or on any of on any of those million things I listed, books, podcasts, all the things, like they know they're getting you. There's
Yeah.
something really authentic about it. And I feel like you know we've been in the yoga industry for a long time. We've seen a lot of things come and go, and I think you're really known for being, I hate the catchword authentic because I think it gets used a lot, but like really just being unapologetically you, and people trust in that and rely on that and feel comfortable in that and feel at home in that, and I think it's such a really a powerful thing.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes it gets me into trouble. I don't have filter. But I don't know. I mean, I guess there's just so many things out there in our capitalistic world that if you want it, you can get it. You know where to find it. And so it's just nice to kind of go against the grain and I don't know, it's hard because we're both businesswomen and I think that our brains are definitely wired a certain way to know how to produce and run things and make it work. And I think the older I get, it's been an interesting dance trying to figure out, okay, I want to run a business, I want it to be successful, but also kind of letting go of the concept of scaling. I think I've always, I'm very much my father's daughter, and he was very successful and taught me that success was very important, which, lots of therapy sessions later. Um, but like trying to not quantify success, which is very difficult to do in this world that is completely run by numbers and
Mhm.
likes and retweets and shares
Mhm.
and subscribers and so it's been very interesting running a business that is a subscription business and having access to the numbers every day and seeing the constant flux of people coming in, people going out, and the non-attachment
Mm.
to it. I think at first, if I would see one person cancel, I'd be like, "Why? We have to go after them. We need to figure out why they're canceling. What's going on?" And slowly just making peace with the fact that businesses ebb and flow, and that the trajectory of business does not always need to be one line that is moving up forever and always. And long story short, just really trying to rewire as I run this business, like what does success look like for this business and for myself?
I love that you said that because I remember early, like, you were one of those people who I remember early on, I was so resistant to going on Facebook. And I met you somewhere around that time, and you were the one who got me to get on Facebook. I don't even know when it was, mid
Mhm.
2000s or something. And but I remember, and I started writing articles, and you were a big inspiration to me. And you told me, I remember, I will never forget. I wrote an article. I think it was like a mind body green article or something, and you told me like, don't read the comments.
Oh,
I think I made the mistake of doing it once. I think maybe that's why you told me. You're like, no, 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 you don't read the comments. And I was like, oh my gosh, but that was such a big piece of good information back then, because it's true. If you read all the comments, you get sucked into this spiral, and and then it's hard not to have that really take you over. And I
mhm.
think, like you said too, the older I get, the less I give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like I don't really care about people's approval. It's the beauty, I think, of like growing older is you just care less about what other people think.
Yeah.
And you are definitely an example for like carving your own path, which is
Yeah,
yeah.
the comment section, yeah, definitely dangerous. I remember of things that stick in your mind, and I have a horrible memory. I used to write, a challenge pose column for a yoga journal, and I think I was doing it I want to say I was doing it once a week. It was something bonkers, like very high
I think I
production.
remember that. Yeah.
And I would like to think I'm a much better writer now than I was nearly 20 years ago. But I was just churning stuff out, and one of the articles had a typo in it. And I'm sure if you look at my old articles, a lot of them have typos in it. Um, and there was some retweet with it of some woman being so snarky, being like, "Well, she's lucky she's good looking because she sure can't write. Did you see this and this and that and that?" And I was just like, "Whoa," you know. And it's so weird that those comments are the ones that just somehow dig their fingernails into you and make a home in your
Yeah.
soul
You read
somehow.
like 100 great ones and then you read that one and it's like nothing else existed. And
Yeah,
it's true. It's
yeah.
hard not to. And I thought that was such a great piece of advice early on. And I've really stuck to it a lot for the most part. Um, especially for articles that aren't on our pages, like on your page, you kind of at least can create a home and a community that can be more supportive and be a little different than writing an article on some random
You
or
have to stay clear on what your message is
yeah.
instead of being skewed by trolls. I mean, trolls. Like people who take the time to just write mean comments on stuff that people are putting a lot of effort into.
And that they would never say to your face, most of them.
Most of
Most of them are things like they're just happy to type away and it makes them feel, they're in this safe place in their house where they can just say whatever they want. And it's not really fair or right or nice or, I mean, even in the yoga world, it's kind of like you think you'd be sheltered from that a little bit, but
God, yoga world, the worst, absolute freaking worst. I don't know what you're talking about.
but I think you've done such a great job of being able to shift your life around what you want instead of what you think the world needs from you or wants from you, of being able to really reinvent yourself a million times over as you change and evolve rather than feeling stuck in some straitjacket of like, I have to be this person that society wants me to be, because there's so much pushing us in and keeping us in these containers of what we think we should be, that it takes a lot, I think, to break free of that.
There's so many expectations, and I'm wondering if you're struggling with this too, because we both, I would say that we both kind of hit the travel circuit around the same time when we were doing workshops, and this was back when conferences were a much bigger deal. When Yoga Journal still did their conference and all
And it was
the
big.
Wonderlist festivals, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so much. And I've been wanting to get off the travel circuit for a long time, just, and it was unbelievable. I got to see the world and meet students from all over. I mean, you understand, you've done it too. It's truly phenomenal. But it's exhausting. And I think, when I was single and in my 20s, it was great. And but as you start to get older and then I'm in a relationship and I've got senior dogs and I love the way my life is. Like travel is a lot. And I've been feeling this pressure now that COVID LOL is letting up a little bit. LOL. Um, and the world is open. I've been getting, more of those invites to come teach again. And I've known in like deep in my body for a long time that that's part of my life that I want to put on the shelf. And maybe here and there, like I would like to do retreats and, do stuff on my own terms. But I've been getting a lot of attitude from people when I say I'm not traveling. And it's been a very interesting, the expectations of others again, where I'm like, I understand that that's what I did for a long time, but this is the new me. This is the new iteration of me. And this is where you can find me now. um, and it's been tough. It's been tough to like really stick by it. I found myself almost caving a couple times just because I don't want to disappoint people
Mm,
and like
yeah.
totally sacrificing what I need and what feels good in my body and my life to not disappoint someone. So that's been a new turn of events for me lately as
I
well, really learning the depth of the word no when it comes to
yeah.
all.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that pressure, at least for me, is like this feeling of needing to stay out there in the world, right? Like we've been teaching for a couple decades now, and it's like you want to stay relevant as you get older, and it's this silly thing. And one thing I've always loved about the yoga world is, and medicine too, that there is like a wisdom inherent with age. You know that like there is this as women, especially as we get older, actually, it's an interesting side note. Like in cultures where women are, where wisdom is like really an important part of the aging process, where age is kind of revered, they actually don't have menopausal symptoms.
Hmm,
Like
really?
these cultures don't really exist much anymore. I think it's Peruvian and some Japanese cultures where
Nowhere in
there's like a reverence with age where it's really respected and upheld. And yeah, the menopausal symptoms are basically non-existent in those cultures. And so I've always
Wow.
loved that in the yoga world and in medicine, there was this kind of wisdom with age. And but yet there's still this feeling as you get older of wanting to be relevant and staying out there in the public's eye. I feel that too. I don't know that I feel it so much from other people as much as inside of me of like, oh God. But as soon as I give myself permission to be like, no, I don't need to do that festival or conference or whatever, or summit or whatever, like I always know the real test is like how I feel that moment when I decide. Because most
Mhm.
of the time it's freedom. It's like,
Oh
oh,
my gosh.
and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I made the right decision." Who cares? I'm always gonna disappoint someone. Doesn't
Uh,
matter what you do.
yeah, the ego is so weird. And I think, you and I have been very lucky that we've had a lot of shine. We've had a lot of spotlight. We've had a lot of shine. Um, and sometimes I kind of miss being in that spotlight. Like you said, like feeling relevant and feeling like I don't feel like the younger generation really knows who I am. And sometimes, because I'm not like one of the Instagrammer people or I guess it's TikTok now. I'm like that is um
I love
and
you right now.
like I don't think I'm even saying the right things. Um and it's just so crazy how quickly it changes too. It's like poof, you're relevant, poof, you're not. But it's like what you were saying about these other cultures is, and what I keep hanging on to is like relevance is just such an interesting concept. Like I have dedicated my life to teaching. And the past 20 plus years I have dedicated myself to this, and I have done a wide spectrum of writing and teaching and traveling and what have you. Like what does it matter what I'm doing right now? Like you can't erase the things that we've already put out into the world. And I
Mm,
think it's something that we all could benefit from more is so, like, taking a moment to pause on the current events of your life and taking the time to look back on what you've already done and what you've achieved,
mm,
and it's not like, "Oh, I was so great then." It's like, "No, I did that. That's part of who I am now." Like,
mm.
it's all part of who I am now, and I don't need to keep topping the old version of myself. I just need to listen to the smarter, wiser, older version of myself and be grateful for the things that I've done and remember that's still part of who I am now. So that's kind of my meditation when my ego starts to get a little noisy,
I
which it can
love that.
be. But not as much these days. I think I'm more at peace with it. And I also just shine and fame doesn't leave you with anything but wanting more of it. It's
Yeah,
really a prison. It just success leaves you wanting more. It's just a constant thirst.
it's true. I totally resonate with that. And like COVID has been a really cool time, I think, for us all, maybe. I'm hearing maybe from you at least of like, it was a little bit forced at first to just stop traveling, which I know me and my husband travels a lot for work too. Forrest is like always on the road too. And we both were just like, oh, felt
Mhm.
so nice to stop traveling and be home. And now my senior dog too, getting to spend some time with her, and my senior dad getting to spend some time with him. And it's like there's so many things that we notice and we slow down. And I couldn't agree more. I just feel like it felt so right And to be able to be like, okay, I don't need that. And I think there are struggles. I think everyone's teaching online now. Most yoga teachers are teaching online now. And like, I think one of the struggles is you don't get that in-person feedback. And it can be, I think, more draining when you're putting content out all the time. And I don't even think of it as much of I don't think it's an ego thing as much as just an energy give and take. When you're teaching and you're there in person and you're in that energy with people and they're giving you that energy back, there's a give and take that's different when you're teaching online. And I think for me, just being aware of that is so important. But I mean, also just needing a little bit more self care time because of it, I think. At least
Mm.
that's me. I don't know if you feel that.
And I think what I totally agree with that. And I think the problem with teaching online for most teachers is that you're recording them and you're keeping them to put into a library. So, it's not just teaching a class. Like you're trying to be like, okay, what do I have in my library? Am I complementing what's already there? What are the voids? And I think what I miss about being in person, teaching in a studio, is I would just walk in and be like, what do we want to do today? I just, what do we want to do? And there was more, it's weird that creating for a library keeps me very creative because I have to see the big picture, but I miss the creativity of just being on my
Mm,
toes, looking at the people who are in the class and
yeah.
pivoting to the energy of the group and being like, this is what we're going to do. I miss that. I miss that a lot. Instead of this is what's on the schedule, this is the level, this is the duration. No one's in the room, so I'm going to give you variations, but this is legit like what I'm going to teach. And so there's some rigidity with online teaching that I love the structure, but I just miss being with my students too. But
Yeah.
but God, I don't want to travel again.
I
I
know.
also don't want to start a studio here, so it's a bit of a problem.
I feel you.
A problem.
I feel very resistant to traveling again, but I do really miss that human connection
I
and
know.
like
No.
being in person. It just is such a different thing. I mean, I feel really grateful that we can continue to do our work online. I remember when COVID first hit, everyone was freaking out, especially yoga teachers. And I was like, hey, wait, guys, like people still want yoga. People still need yoga. And so, like, there's still a really important place. We just need to adapt and evolve and find a way to meet them, which is great that we can do that
Mm.
now. Back in the 90s when I started, like, there was no, there was a point where we didn't have that option. Right. And so it's cool that we can do that. But it is kind of, yeah, it's a tricky one. I pulled this off of one of your posts and I love this. You said, Yoga is this little portable island that we bring with us no matter where we are, so that when we unroll our mat and step onto this island, we are home. And
Mm.
I just love that. I love that. And like, is that like, what does your practice mean to you now? Is that like where you're at? How do you feel about your practice?
I um, my practice has changed a lot since starting House of Phoenix. It's my practice is often practicing what I want to give my students. It's the going through and testing things and writing classes. Um, but what's really special is when I know what I'm going to teach. I don't have to practice anything, and I unroll my map without any direction. Like I love to just get on my mat and move my body and see where it takes me. And that's where I get some of my most creative ideas is truly moving with intuitively and
Yeah.
listening to what feels good. And of course, like sometimes I'll want to do primary Ashtanga or something classic that I've done forever, and that always feels good. But even if I start to do primary, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll like go do this for a little bit, and zip all over. But I feel like that's really where I feel most at home in my body. Um, and it's tricky, since I do run a studio, it's also work. So sometimes when I do have the extra time, yoga doesn't always sound that alluring to me because I'm thinking about it so frequently.
Mm,
So those moments where it's just me and my practice without like I'm doing this for other people and this is just for me, it's just hard to find those moments, but when I do get them, they're really, really satisfying. And
Yeah.
sometimes it'll be like Kate wants to practice and she'll be like, "Will you just take us through something?" And
Oh.
and it's cute. It's really cute. And so those have been some of my favorite practices too, is just like making stuff up on the fly for her and doing it together, and that's always felt really
So sweet.
good.
I
I
love
know.
you, Kate. All right, I want to shift gears. I feel like you were a really like an early voice in body positivity, especially in the yoga world, which is kind of ironic because I feel like you're so tiny. You're like a size 2 and
A full grade.
you, well, compared to me, I feel like next to me, you're just like this tiny, tiny little thing. I remember looking at your
Whatever,
clothes in your
Amazonian
closet.
goddess.
People are always like, "Whoa, you're so big" when they meet me, and they're always like, "Whoa, you're so tiny" when they meet you.
And 5'2". Yep.
But I feel like there's such a complicated relationship with body image when you're a yoga teacher and you live in spandex all the time. And we all feel this. I knew, we've talked about it. And, I have a similar feeling of like some days you show up and you feel great, and some days you feel like you feel awful, right? You want to cover yourself, and yet we show up in our spandex. And like, where are you at in how you feel in your body as far as showing up? We kind of talked about teaching over the years and how that's changed. How has that changed for you now?
Gosh, so much, so much. I am so forgiving of my body now, and I was not for a really long time. I don't think I really even realized like how deep it went, especially when I lived in Los Angeles. I lived
Yes.
in LA for 8 years, and I was so submerged in that Santa Monica, Los Angeles yoga, fitness, wellness culture that I didn't even realize I was, you
I
know?
remember that. I remember that was like, I remember when you first moved, it was a big change for you, just getting out of LA. And I only lived there briefly, but even when I would go and visit you and film at Glow, it was just like, it's a totally
Oh,
different world there.
yeah, and it's just you get brainwashed, it's I was always doing like this cleanse or that cleanse or cutting this out of my diet or preparing for a photo shoot. And let me tell you, what do I do to prepare for a photo shoot? Jack shit. Now, like, I just but the amount of stuff that I used to go through, and I don't know, and but I think it was a product of what I was seeing in media and what I was surrounded by and what the other teachers look like. And yeah, I mean, I was hot when I was in LA. I was a size 2, a 2, a tiny little 2. And people would always praise me being like, you're so strong, but you just don't look like it." And I'd be like, "Thanks. Thanks. That's really good to hear."
Wow.
And then I was so curvy and I'm like, "Wow, since when is a size 2 curvy?" And like, I mean, I'm older now. My tits have exploded since I was younger. I'm definitely curvier than I used to be as I've just like embraced my ever changing body. But it, it was just such a statement on how messed up the wellness world was at the time. Not that I think it's that much better, but I do think we're moving in a better direction. But the fact that I was even praised as like brave in my body was so fucked up.
Mm.
Like, so here I am, a size 2, and I'm supposed to be like the brave warrior who, isn't made of ripped abs. Like, and then how is everybody else supposed to feel? Like, it's just, it makes me sick to my stomach when I look back at that time. Um, and, and it's hard because like I will always have those 8 years of Los Angeles in me, but and my body has changed a lot. I don't know. I don't know how much I weigh. I don't own a scale. I don't know how much I weigh. definitely much more than I did when I lived in Los Angeles, and I have to look at myself on camera every day, and I see, like, rolls on my back and on my front and under my boobs and all sorts of stuff and skin that sags that didn't used to sag and that. But I'm also like, I'm about to turn 40. This is my body. I take care of it. And this is just what it looks like.
Thank you. Thank
It's just
you.
what it looks like.
And I
And
think the world needs more of that. We put people on a pedestal who are 40 or 50 and look great. And it's like, why can't we celebrate people for looking their age?
I
Why
know.
can't we celebrate the wrinkles? Because the wrinkles are what gave me the wisdom to be where I
Yes.
am now. And by the way, I would never want to be a 20 something again. Loved my
No.
20s, but
Oh,
I would never go back. Never go
no.
back. I
Good luck
love my
all you
40s. 40s are the
girls.
best.
No,
And
it's
yeah.
oh, I mean, I think that very much to each their own when it comes to beauty and like what people want to do to their face, and but at the same time, I just Kate and I talk about this a lot because we've never done Botox or filler or anything like that, and we feel like outliers.
Mm,
Almost all my friends do, almost everybody, and I don't want to be the one judging because like whatever people need to do to feel good, I'm like cool. Like feel good, like do what you need to feel good. But the problem is, and I live in the South. I'm in South Carolina, so there's a lot of like Southern Belle bullshit going on here. But like when everyone is doing injectables and this and that and trying to capture this youth that they don't have anymore, which I mean we're still young, it does then make me look in the mirror and think like, "Oh, am I doing something wrong?" Like, I can
mm.
see the lines under my eyes and around my eyes, and I can see, like, when I lie down, my skin is getting crepey, and, like, I can see this stuff, and I don't see that on my other friends, and then I have a moment of like, "Oh, oh, that's not attractive," and I
Mm,
have to reel myself back in. I'm like, "No, no, 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 like, I look great. This is great. This is I look the way I'm supposed to look." And
yeah.
and and Kate's very good because Kate's way more like she's a better gay than me. She's like, "Fuck it." And and I love that about gay women. Like, gay women are just the best because they just it's not that they don't care, they're beautiful, but they don't care about the traditional male gaze societal stand
Mm,
and what heteronormative women do to feel like they fit in under that gaze. And when you hang out with a bunch of queer women, like you see their laugh lines and they normally don't wear a lot of makeup, and it's just I'm like, "Oh, it's just it feels so good to just see women letting themselves
humanness.
be women." Yeah, like
Yeah.
and and whatever, like my hair is pink and I love sparkly eyeshadow and I like makeup, and I'm not saying that like you can't do fun stuff, but it just like I would love to see more people doing things because it's an expression of their personality as opposed to doing it so they think they look age appropriate or beautiful. You know what I mean?
And that's my beef with it. Like, I'm the same way. To each his own. I'm not a Botox person, but like, if you're into that or makeup or whatever it is, like, that's cool. What bothers me personally is when I start to feel like I have to do those things just to
Mm,
get out of bed in the morning. Like I have to do certain things to myself to make myself presentable. And then I
mm,
start to feel really unhappy it's depressing, right? To think that I'm not good enough as I am. And so for me, it's really important to like, I don't really wear a lot of makeup. Actually, when
yeah.
I do, Forrest laughs because he says I look like a clown, which is nice because he doesn't need me to wear makeup, which is really nice, and he likes my gray hairs and all that stuff. But I totally feel you. Like in the media, it's such a weird thing, and I do think things are changing a little bit for the better, like starting to embrace curves, starting to embrace age, starting
Mm.
to embrace diversity. Like there's a lot of things that are happening, and um, we just need a whole lot more.
So much more. And it's just, yeah, it's, I think for me, and this might be partially because I am queer, so I think a little bit differently than the like the people who are trying to do something for the male gaze, right? You know, but I do think that allowing ourselves to be more comfortable with who we are is not just serving yourself, it's serving your entire circle. And like when you show up more comfortable in your skin and not like talking shit about yourself or needing to alter something or just that diminishing talk, like it affects everyone you're around and then they feel more comfortable as well.
Mm.
So it's something I think we can all think about.
And I think it goes both ways. I was thinking about this recently. I always think about this whole like self-love concept because it feels like such an illusion. I wrote an article on it a long time ago, but like, can we really love ourselves all the time? Like, we all go through this, ebb and flow of emotions and how we feel about ourselves. And I think it's human nature to a certain extent. But I also think part of it is the same lens that we judge other people through. Like we see other people and we look at all, in the media on the things, and the more for me personally, I can see what I used to consider flaws and start to embrace them and find positivity in these things. Like we're kind of programmed to believe our flaws, like, oh my God, there's a ripple here. Oh my gosh, things are changing. Like I totally feel the same way. Exactly what you said, just copy, paste, repeat. But like the more I can start to make friends with those in other people, then it's that same lens I turn on myself.
Mhm.
Like the people who are the biggest perfectionists, or like it's the judgment either way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like I was like, is it self love or is it me changing how I look at the world?
I I'm gonna go with the latter for sure. Just I agree with you that I think self-love, well, at least the way that media talks about it is definitely an illusion. Um, I just think in the culture that we're raised in here in the West, it's impossible. Like we are raised to be taught that we are not good enough and that we need to buy things to be good enough. And buy, and then you will be fulfilled. Like,
Do more, be more, have more,
yeah,
more, 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 more.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's like we don't even realize we're being force fed that since a tiny, tiny age. So to then, you know, in the same breath be like, but you should love yourself. It's like, oh, screw you. Like you've taught me the opposite my entire life. So, and then I think people feel shame for not loving themselves, like
Yeah.
feeling like they
Yep.
can't
Oh, look at all
fully.
these people and these self-love cliches online, on social media, and like, right?
And that's tricky too, because like I'm all for representation. And I think if we see, a more diverse group of bodies, that's good. But also like when I see these pages where like body positive people who are just like always posting their body and then being like, it's self-love, it's self-love. I'm like, when you say that, you're insinuating that your body is not worth loving and that you have to keep posting it to show people that it is. I don't know if I'm making sense, but like when people have to like just share your life and share your body, like I just
Mm.
don't think people always need to be attaching it to their body and talking about their body. I'm like, just live and show yourself. With this constant like, I love myself. Look at me, like I have cellulite and I love myself. I'm like, just post a picture of yourself with cellulite and don't talk about your cellulite. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Do you.
Yeah.
Like if we
Oh,
keep
that's a good
putting these
point.
things out, then we keep highlighting that this is actually
That it's
ugly,
not
it's
okay.
unattractive, and this is not okay, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
act like it's okay. And I'm like, let's just stop labeling it as anything and just be it. Like just
Yeah.
be what you are and put it
That's
out
so
there.
true. It's so true. I feel like, yeah. And it kind of leads you down this rabbit hole of social media too. Like I think we all have a love-hate relationship with it. And, like you're always reading articles about, the negative influences on social media, on kids and, on us, on our brains. Like what's your relationship with social media now?
I mean, I hate it. I I like being able to like follow my friends I love it for food ideas, honestly. Like it is all these new like little Instagram short cooking video things is totally pornographic for me. So I do love that. Um I'm okay with because I primarily use it for House of Phoenix and Inky Phoenix. So I'm primarily using it for business. So I'm okay with like I just treat it like business and we have a post structure and we take our meetings, we figure out what our post schedule is for the next 2 weeks. Bam, 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 put it in the Dropbox. It's organized. I can put it up. But for my personal page, like I don't post a lot. I'll put things up on my story and it's normally like, ah, she doing this or ah, she doing that.
Or
Or like
fashion
or
drops.
fashion
I
because
like those.
and I'm like, it's just this fluffy thing that people seem to like, and I like it. So I'll share outfits, because it's just like fluff. And but I don't know. I'm just like tired of the algorithm and tired of like if
Ugh,
things don't do well, I inevitably always feel like people don't like me or my numbers keep dropping and I'm like, what am I doing? And it's
yeah.
just, no, that's not true. I know that's not emblematic of real life, and yet your brain is wired to think like, oh, how this shows up on this little screen is who I am in real life, and it's just not the truth. So I try to limit myself from too much of my personal page because it just doesn't do any good. So it's
It's
just not good there.
it's true. I feel like you are one of the first like yoga people I saw on social media. Like I said, you were the one that pulled me onto Facebook,
So active, yeah.
and it's interesting to watch it kind of come full circle. And also, as I think the longer you've been on there, and I watch our daughter and son. Our daughter is on there a lot more than our son, but like she's always on there, and it's just interesting to watch people's relationship to it change over the years. And like your brain, when you're on that all the time, there's no way you can't always be judging yourself, and the mental health issues, and the
Mm.
like just the thought of growing up in that makes me feel depressed, you
Oh my
know?
gosh,
Like,
I can't even imagine having a child in this climate and with the I it terrifies me. I feel so deeply for my family and friends who have children who have to deal with this. It's just, I mean, I was just reading an article about, cyberbullying and all these horrible things that are just increasing every single year and the lives that are being lost and the mental health and something that Kate talks about a lot with her work and it's their brains aren't even fully developed yet. And here we are with fully developed brains, maybe slightly decaying ones now, and we're still struggling to like truly so with fully developed brains and mature like, bodies, like how are we I don't know. It is
yeah.
truly scary for me.
It is a strange thing. And I think I pulled another one of your posts that it kind of segues us into Pride Month, which was what inspired me to bring you on initially, but there were so many other great things I want to talk about. But you wrote this post and it touched me in well, I'll just read it. Um and I'm shortening it a little bit, but you said an ugly thing happens behind the scenes every time I post a picture with my wife. Superficially, the images tend to get lots of comments and love and double taps, but internally, I lose hundreds of followers every single time. But here's the reason, among many, while I'll never stop sharing, queer representation matters. I count my lucky freaking stars every day that I get to live life with the best human I know, and I hope it can give hope to those who feel afraid, alone, or unseen. So I think there's such an important place for it. Like I read things like that, and then you're like, okay, like we still need to be on here because we need to make sure there's good stuff on social media still, and that it's not all crap. But it's such a tough, it's such a tough place to be.
I know, and I think it's a hard thing to remember too, because right, it's just this little app on your phone, and you don't. At least I don't always remember how many people it's reaching. And especially if a post doesn't get a lot of traction, I'm like, oh, no one saw it. But then this happens to me a lot in Charleston where, I shared a reel for one of my Hungry Phoenix recipes. And then I was out like at a restaurant and running errands and this and that. And I mean, at least 6 or 7 different people were like, oh, saw the thing about your pasta and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, what? It's something like that didn't get a lot of traction at all. And then yet all these people are talking to me about it. And it was just a good reminder, like, oh, okay, like when you post something, it gets out there. Like you were putting it out into the world. So it is a good reminder to when something is important to you, like, yeah, to share it, and I think that there's obviously when we went, I think not so much anymore, but there was the big like platitude phase of Facebook and Instagram where people will just like post a beautiful yoga pose and then something platitudey, that has nothing to do with the yoga pose. Um, Definitely was guilty of that. And but I mean, I think that when you do have a very earnest feeling like that that post, I do think it's important to share, and I do get a lot of people reaching out to me who, are part of the LGBTQ plus community or are not out or feel that their story is similar to mine, and we'll talk about like watching my story and everything I've shared has given them hope, and it's a light. And so those are the moments where I'm like, okay, yes, social media is a cesspool, but it does has the potential to bind and connect and heal and help. Just wish there was a overall healthier way of
Mm.
doing it. More of a filter for the filters to filter out all the stuff that we don't want to see.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. There was like a little button you could push.
You're like, no, no,
Filter out
never.
the crap,
Yeah.
the cliches and the crap. And I think that's, it kind of brings us full circle to what I started with is like, I think that's what makes you brilliant. I love watching your stuff because you just have this way of being so you and so personal, but also, there's also clearly, um, there's clarity in who you are. Like some people can almost be a little too personal on social media, and you're like, okay, I didn't need to know all of that. But like you have to be able to reshape things in a relevant way. For me, it's always like, okay, what's my purpose here? Like whether that's just to share something that is meaningful to me today or to give some information or advice. Like it's so hard because there's just so much coming at you all the time on social media. And, I mean, some of it's positive, some of it's negative, some of it's just kind of neutral and filler. What do I want to contribute to? And how can I contribute in a meaningful way, not only for the people that are watching it, but for myself and have a meaningful, sustainable career
Yeah.
in life?
And it's just it'll keep, I mean, we'll talk 5 years from now, and who knows what we're gonna be talking about, like, what will be the pivot then? Yeah, and I guess this is just life, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if we were around when Edison invented the light bulb? Like, I don't know, just you just think of, like, you go through history and all the different crazy things that, like, keep happening and keep changing, and the world is just doing this, and yet we're taking one step at a time each day. Difficult to understand the speed at which the world is spinning around you nonstop. Excuse me.
Okay, so June is Pride Month,
Yes.
and so I do want to ask, of course, like what does Pride mean to you?
Oh my God. That's so funny that you asked that because I'm going to be answering that for my House of Phoenix people. Because for June, excuse me, for June, we are only having LGBTQ plus teachers on the site, and we're doing a big Pride Week takeover. I'm super excited. We're really going gay. I love it. I love it. And I'm asking all the teachers what pride means to them. And I don't think I have fully landed on my answer yet, but you are making me think faster and harder. um,
Do you want to
actually,
pause and get some water? Yeah. Yeah. All right. COVID coughing bout
Water.
alleviated.
um, okay, so this definitely isn't the eloquent answer, but I think for me, pride is being seen. Um, like I think pride is God, I mean, just like with everything that's going on in the world right now, it's it's being treated like a fucking human who has all the same rights as everybody else. And yeah, it's a celebration and there's parades and there's rainbows and there's sparkles and the LGBT community is fun for sure. But there's a lot of pain underneath that. And I think that like for me, pride is being seen, like showing exactly who I am, kind of what we've been talking about this entire podcast, and not apologizing and not hiding and every day making a choice to say who I am. And when you're gay or queer or however you identify, like you have to come out again and again and again and again. You're in the back of an Uber car and someone's asking you like if you're going back to your husband, you have to come out in the back of an Uber car. Like there's just constantly people and societal assumptions of who you are, how you identify, what your life looks like as opposed to who you are. So pride is being seen, like allowing yourself to not be edited or erased and to be part of the daily conversation.
Love that. Like, mic drop. I see you. I love you. I'm grateful for you. I love you so much. I'm like, there's so many things I feel like I want to talk about with you and so many important things. I think the big thing, and like you said, I feel like it's such an important time. Pride Month couldn't have come at a better time with everything that's happening in the world right now. And so many things that we take for granted now being questioned and um gosh, and then all the stuff we talk about with body image and the labels and the need for labels, like do we need labels to feel recognized and seen, and like the reality that we all really defy labels, we all defy categories, like there's no way to label people,
Mm,
like,
really
but we
shouldn't.
love those categories, and it makes things easier on health checklists and stupid things that don't matter. But it's such an interesting thing too when it comes to social media, when we look at like how do we label people, how do we recognize people, how do we show that in our communities, and if you're not in the LGBTQ plus community, like how do we support? Because I know there's a lot of people like myself who really love this community and want to support it, even though I'm kind of like on the outside looking in, like what can we do?
I mean, I think there's the simplicity of being thoughtful with words. I think that people make a lot of assumptions. Um, Using neutral pronouns is huge. Like, you don't look at a straight passing woman and ask if they have a boyfriend or a husband. Like you can't just think that your experience is the same as everyone else if they look like you. And this obviously goes way beyond the LGBTQ realm. And so I think the first thing that people can do is just don't project your experience on someone else and assume that you understand anything about them. And I mean, I live in the South, so it's easy, but y'all is the most gender neutral phrase you can use, and it feels good. It rolls off the mouth. It's nice, you know, like y'all is going to be a safe one. Um, so, number one, don't assume, be inclusive with your language, and broaden your horizons. It's part of the reason why I have the Inky Phoenix is, I'm trying to get a lot of our literature is by LGBTQ plus authors, but I mean, I try to pick a very diverse um, author base in general. Always looking for stories that like kind of put me a little outside of my comfort zone because I'll be like, oh, I don't think this is written for me. Good, I should read it. I think that it's been too long that we are a society that does things that are made for us, and we stick to the things that are made for us.
Mm.
And of course, it's comfortable. Like, we want things that are made for us because it's cozy. But I think we could all do a much better job of stepping outside of our comfort zone and watching, a gay movie, or reading from a trans author, or reading something on the Atlantic about gay rights that has nothing to do with your life, but maybe you should be educated about, because it could be hurting someone that you love dearly soon. So these are all the things that I think, just step outside of your comfort zone, and think about the people, or maybe you don't have anyone in your life that's LGBTQ plus, which is a damn shame. Um, Life must be so boring. Make friends, go make friends. Try different teachers. Come check out House of Phoenix. We're gonna have so many amazing guest teachers this month, and highlighting educators and authors. And so, yeah, like, be curious. Just be curious.
I love that. And I think, whatever your sexual identity, your age, your color, your body shape, or whatever, I think so many yoga teachers still feel that pressure to kind of look a certain way or speak a certain way to get the likes and the popularity. And, I hope that we can all find ways to be more fully ourselves, as, I think you set a great example for this, and create spaces that welcome students to do the same, to kind of have these communities where people can be at home. And that doesn't necessarily mean like not everyone's going to resonate with every home, but if I can really be who I am and welcome people as they are, I think it's such an important part of it. Yeah. Thank you for setting an example, for inspiring us all and giving us some things to chew on, and for being a longtime friend, someone who I respect and admire and am inspired by and have so much love for.
I feel the same way about you. You're gonna make me all emotional, and then I'm
uh,
I love
well,
you, Tiffany.
what's the best place for people to find more info and connect with you?
Um, God, it's sad but true, on social media, I guess. But the House of Phoenix, it's HAUS, thehouseoffphoenix.com is where you can learn about our site. The inkyphoenix.com is our book club. And then kathrynbudig.com is all of it, and me. And they all have the same handles: the Inky Phoenix, the House of Phoenix, Kathryn Budig. Come visit, come ask questions, come try classes. Would love to have you come read or do something with us.
Yay.
Come take
Well, I
Tiffany.
have a couple of classes on there.
Yes, you
Or no,
do.
is it just one? It's just one.
I only have one, but
One.
don't worry.
One.
There's
Sorry.
one coming back tomorrow.
My brain. I don't even have COVID as an excuse. It's
Like,
just
leave that to me. Leave it to me.
mush brain. And we'll have all the links to her stuff on the episode page, so you guys can just scroll down on the episode page and get right to her. Thank you so much for making time for this, even though I know you're not feeling your 100% best. You look amazing, and so many great words of wisdom and just knowledge from so many years of teaching and being in the industry to share with everyone. So thanks for doing it.
Oh my gosh. I'll be looking forward to part 2.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for listening to Yoga Medicine. If you like the show, please be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you got something out of this episode, please spread the word and share it with a friend. You can find more information, articles, trainings, and classes at yogamedicine.com, or check us out on social media as Yoga Medicine. You can also email us at info@yogamedicine.com. Thank you for being a part of our Yoga Medicine community. We look forward to seeing you again. The content of this podcast is not medical advice and is not meant to replace medical care. Please consult your healthcare provider to determine what is best for your unique healthcare needs.